What is up, everyone? It's Al from Big-Al-YGO back again with a deck profile for Salamangreat, and this is going to be an entirely budget deck profile. You're not really going to be seeing any cards on this deck list that are exceeding £10 in value. £10 English sterling, that is. And if there are only maybe 3 or 4, cards that I'd say might break some people's banks, but this deck is very budget. It's definitely under 100 quid for the whole thing. And without further ado, I'm going to show you it. Now, Salamangreat's been in the meta for about the good part of a year now, and it's had multiple hits on the ban list, and I can even see them addressing the deck as again at some point in the future, because with the new support from Eternity Code, the deck can really push through and OTK the opponent stupidly quickly. I'll explain my card choices and why I play them in the deck profile, as well as potential pricing and expensive cards that you might need to look out for. But I was going to use this to talk about Atignista instead, but I tried uploading a deck profile the other week and there was a lot of problems with the deck that was pointed out to me. And all in all, in terms of Cyburst deck profiles, Salamangreat is definitely the most competitively viable Cyburst deck out there. So I'll be giving you this instead. Plus, Atignista at its core is very expensive as well, and you're just paying more money for a deck that can't compete. It's just a fun deck to play. So let's get started. So we're playing 3 copies of Salamangreat Foxy. Salamangreat Foxy has one of 2 effects. You can either choose to, on normal summon, excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, and you can add a Salamangreat card up from among them to your hand, and then shuffle the rest into your deck. Or, once a turn if it's in the graveyard and there's a face-up spell or trap on the field, you can discard a Salamangreat card from your hand to special summon it from the graveyard, and in the same effect, you can destroy a face-up spell or trap card on the field. Foxy is amazing. It's a staple 3 of, because there's so much utility that this card can give you, and so much advantage as well. Okay, 2 copies of Jack Jaguar. This is a level 4 that helps you go into your rank 4 plays, as well as the fact that it can deal piercing damage. It's an 1800 beta, and it can bring itself back out of the graveyard to the zone of Salamangreat Link monster points to, which helps you trigger the recycling effect of Sunlight Wolf, as well as being able to shuffle back into the extra deck a monster that you used for a relink, such as Sunlight Wolf. We're playing 2 Spinny now. This card used to be a staple 3 of when Mirage Stalio was still in the game. However, what a lot of people forget about is the fact that, Spinny can boost your monster by 500 attack points, and if this is in the hand with Gazelle, even just by discarding the Spinny, you can trigger the effect of the Gazelle in hand. So, it still has its utilities, but once you've brought that Spinny out of the grave 9 times out of 10, it will be getting banished when it leaves the field now, because we're not playing any Xyz monsters in the extra deck that can, take advantage of this. The one Gazelle, I'm pretty sure you don't need any explanation about what Gazelle does, but in case no one is familiar about Gazelle, this guy can special summon himself from the hand if a Salamangreat monster is sent to the graveyard through any means, and when he's normal or special summoned, you can send any Salamangreat card from your deck to the graveyard. Both of these effects are hard once per turns. Gazelle is the card you want to see the most quickly. I think we all know how good this card is. Now, for the one-off salads, we've got a Salamangreat Falco. This is nice to recycle your spell and traps when you're unable to get them back with Sunlight Wolf, but also it can synergize well with the Salamangreat monsters that you don't want on your field anymore, you'd rather have in your hand. So for example, if you have the Gazelle on your field that hasn't used its hand effect yet, you can just bounce the Gazelle back with Falco, and then it will be back in your hand ready to be used again. Plus it's another level 4, which is nice. We're playing the Foul because it's a level 4 that can just special summon itself from the hand if a Salamangreat monster is normal summoned or special summoned to your side of the field. And it can also help you target a spell or trap your opponent controls, and it cannot be activated this turn. So if your opponent has any, by sending a Salamangreat card from your hand to the graveyard, you can lock down one of your opponent's back row. And a lot of people I've seen haven't really been abusing this effect, but I think in a very back row heavy format like this, especially with Eldritch running around, it's very useful to have. Now we're moving on to the non-salads. Triple Flame Buffalo. I don't think this guy needs an introduction. You link him off for Balinks, and then as long as you've got a Cyburst monster in hand, you can pitch a Cyburst monster to draw 2. But just be wary that whenever you're using Flame Buffalo to link summon Balinks, you must activate Balinks as Chainlink 2 and Buffalo as Chainlink 1, because you want the Balinks to go off first and search your Salamangreat Sanctuary. Make sure you have that in your hand before you pitch and draw with Buffalo, because sometimes you can pitch and draw with Buffalo first, draw into the Sanctuary, which you could have searched off of Balinks. So just keep that in mind for any of you beginner players out there. Now onto the new card from Eternity Code, 3 Parallel Exceed. This card is pretty bloody fantastic. It summons an additional copy of itself out of the deck when it's summoned, and if you link summon, you can special summon it from your hand to a zone it points to. Now you might be thinking, well, how are you going to search this? You've only got Signet Mining in the deck and Lady Debug, which can search only level 4 or lower and level 3 or lower monsters respectively. Well, that's where our 4-Mud Skipper comes in. So we ignore his first effect for the most part, but if he's sent to the graveyard, you, as a link material, can add a level 5 or higher Cyburst monster from your deck to your hand. You can play 1-for-1 with this as well, because even though I'm not playing this in the deck, it's an idea, because if you have 1-for-1, it's just another way to get to your 4-Mud Skipper, link it off, search your Parallel Exceed, and Parallel Exceed by itself is full transcode talker update jammer bollocks. You know, it's pretty damn good. So now for more consistency, 2 Lady Debug. We're not playing 3 because you have a lot of searching in the deck already, and I think 3 is a bit excessive, and you don't want to be seeing multiples of this card in your hand at all times. Disruption, 2 Veiler, nice cheap alternative to Impermanence, and 2 Ash. This card is still under £10 a copy, so if you can get your hands on this card, all the better for you. Now onto the spell lineup, the Salad spells. Triple Will of the Salamangreat. This card is fantastic. It can special summon a Salamangreat monster from hand or graveyard, or it can summon Salamangreat monsters in defense position by sending a relinked Salamangreat monster from your field to the graveyard, and summon monsters from your graveyard up to its link rating in defense position. You can choose one of those effects per turn, but most of the time you're just going to be using its first effect. The 1 Circle, this card can search any Salamangreat monster from your deck to their hand, or it can target a Salamangreat link monster that was relinked, and for the rest of the turn it's unaffected by monster effects except its own. So if you have a relinked Salamangreat monster on the field that you feel like it might be threatened by your opponent's monster effects, you can add this back to your hand with Sunlight Wolf's relinked ability, and then just have it as an additional line of protection for your special monsters. 1 Sanctuary, it can be searched with Balinks. It's a very important card, but it's not the end of the world if it does get destroyed, because you can always reactivate it with your Sunlight Wolf or Falco. Triple Signet Mining. This card is around about £10 in England right now. It was about 8. It has gone up a little bit, but because of Dual Overload, this card is way cheaper than it has been prior. And to think people were, you know, spending almost 200 on a set of these back when, you know, Signet Mining first came out, and it's really nice to be able to access this card. But it's a generic type searcher, you know, with cards like Reinforcement of the Army. I don't even see cards like Fossil Dig lasting that long, so I fear for this card's future, but at the same time I don't, you know, because I think Salamangreat is slowly getting power crept, and eventually in the future we might see Salamangreat cards come back, but this is all left to be desired. Get that segue right there. Pot of Desires, 3 of them. You only really want to definitely see Gazelle in your hands, so as long as you've got the Gazelle in your hand and maybe a Parallel Exceed, you're free to just abuse this card as much as you want. Free Called by the Grave. You can bait out your searching a lot, but this card is very good at disrupting the opponent's graveyard effects. So just keep that in mind. And for the traps, we're playing 2 Rage. This helps clear your opponent's boards. You know, the bigger the relink monster's link rating you have, the more effective it can be. And 2 copies of Raw. We all know it's this counter trap that can reset itself if you relink a monster. Banishes itself if you do that, but you can just add it back to your hand from the grave with Sunlight Wolf. So there we go. I know Salamangreat's probably not everyone's first choice of interesting deck profile, but we're going to do the link monsters now in descending order. So double heat Leo. Every time this guy's link summoned, you can spin a card from your opponent's back row back into the deck. And if he's relinked, you can make your one of your opponent's monsters attack the same as a monster in your graveyard by targeting both. This card is great. It's probably not got as much attack points as I'd have liked it to have, but it's a fantastic card for dealing with back row heavy decks and just really putting the pressure on your opponent. 3 Sunlight Wolf. This probably needs, again, no explanation. So Sunlight Wolf has a multitude of abilities. First of all, if a monster is summoned to a zone it points to, then you can add a fire monster from your graveyard back to the hand, but you can't activate its effect nor summon it for the rest of the turn. While it's relinked, it basically lets you target any Salamangreat spell or trap in the graveyard and add it back to your hand. Both of these effects are hard once per turn, but as you can see, it's your recursion. It gives your deck what it needs to keep chugging along. 3 Bailink searches Sanctuary on summon, and it's the card that can protect your Salamangreat cards, that spells, traps, monsters on the field with by card effects destruction by banish itself from the graveyard. Fantastic card, fantastic climbing monster as well. You always play 3 of this. Now on to the non-Salamangreat monsters. We've got 1 Nightmare Phoenix because it's a fire monster and it can help deal with more back row. We've got the Update Jammer and Transcode Talker. So Update Jammer, if it's used as link material, you give the monster that has used it as link material 2 attacks during each battle phase. And also Update Jammer has a nice effect on the field that during the battle phase, if one of your monsters attacks, or Cyberse monsters attacks, you can basically skill drain the rest of the field until after damage. So, and burn your opponent for 1,000, which can win games in itself, you know, in time. So it's pretty good. Transcode Talker basically brings back the Update Jammer after you've used it as link material, so that you can attack twice with the Transcode Talker and again attack with the Update Jammer. Not to mention that they'll be co-linked, meaning that Transcode Talker will be boosting both monsters by 500 and giving them targeting protection, so that's pretty fantastic. However, what if you don't want to use Update Jammer to give Transcode Talker 2 attacks? Well, you can bring back the Transcode Talker and the Update Jammer to link summon into Topologic Zeroboros. Now you're using Pot of Desires in the deck, so Zeroboros can get huge really bloody quickly, and having this thing attack twice in your opponent if their field's clear, then let's just say they're pretty much dead. And if you can't finish them off, then just summon a monster to a zone Zeroboros points to and clear everything away, and then hope your opponent can't make a comeback. We've also got Barolo Dragon. This is the budget alternative to Access Code Talker. Access Code Talker is the new Cyberse Code Talker monster from Eternity Code, and it's stupid. Basically, Access Code Talker can gain the attack of a link monster in your graveyard, and it has a non-once per turn effect that lets you pop cards your opponent controls for every different attribute of Cyberse link monster that you banish, which means you can clear your opponent's field with it and attack for game. So without it being able to be responded to, may I add. And you've got the attributes because you've got Jammer, you've got Transcode Talker, you've got fire monsters. So that's 3 pops and 10k damage, what with Transcode Talker in the graveyard. So Barolo Dragon is harder to get into. However, once it's on the field with Update Jammer as material, you can steal 2 of your opponent's monsters that were otherwise very hard to deal with. So that's it. There's also Avramax as well, which is the non-budget alternative as well to Access Code Talker, but you're probably better off just using Access Code Talker at this point. And for the Xyz monsters, 1 Dweller for Graveyard Floodgating and 1 Bagooska. Now, the funny story about Bagooska in this deck is once Dragoon comes out, if you've got a Link monster on the field and you've got Bagooska on the field in defense, then your Link monsters aren't really effective, and once Dragoon's out, then it can't use its effects on field. You floodgate out the Dragoon and then you can deal with it however way you please, which is pretty damn good. Okay, so that has been Salamangreat for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the deck profile. This is just my explanation as to what I've been playing and how it's been working for me. By all means, try this deck out online. I'm gonna at some point today upload a Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro deck profile and put it in the description for you guys. But that's been me, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.